booty juice class. That'd be nice.
Ugh, how badly I need a booty juice class is beyond me. I so badly need some booty juice.
I feel like I need to ask why, but there's a million reasons why.
There are one. It's always nice to be able to be the only guy surrounded by a bunch of women in a class. Two,
All the booties.
with a lot of booties, a lot of great booties, because it's booty juice class. So of course the booties are going to be bombastic. Hey, what's happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Proclivity Podcast. My name's Joel Cochran. I'm your host. I'm here with the lovely and talented Emily Rodella. And today what we're going to be talking to you guys about is the animal-based diet. We just got done with the carnivore diet, and now we're shifting and moving into the animal-based diet. So what we're going to do is we're going to recap and tell you our experience of going through the carnivore diet real quick. Then we're going to talk to you about the pros and cons of the animal-based diet, what is it, and how you can get started with it so you can avoid some of the pitfalls. Yet before I get into this, I want to touch on one word that I want all of you to hone in on, and that is diet. Emily, when I say diet, what are most people going to think?
They're going to think restriction.
And when they think restriction, is that something that they go, oh, I can't wait to go into restriction?
No, it's something you want to usually back away from, and or you think of all the things you quote unquote can't have.
And then when we think about restriction, is that restriction for the rest of our lives?
Usually that's what people think, at least when they're in it.
And that sounds horrible. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be restricted for the rest of my life. And so we want to be really careful with this word diet, you guys. By definition, diet is the food and drink of an organism. So the diet of a cheetah is gazelle. The diet of a turtle is grass and whatever else is on the ground. When we look at that, we just go, oh yeah, that's the diet of that animal. And so when we're talking about this, I want you to think to yourself, I am following carnivore-based eating. I am following animal-based eating. There's no restriction of this and that because you can shift. I can go from carnivore, and then I can shift into animal-based, and then I can shift into a chocolate-based way of eating. And I can do all of those things. And we want to be able to go, what is my intention of moving through these different styles of eating? So keep that in mind, because in the end, all baseline different styles of eating are going to have similar results. Now, there are things that we need to restrict and so on and so forth. And that's what Emily talks about when it comes to your gut health and yeast overgrowth and bacteria and mold and all that kind of stuff that we can dive into. But for the most part, when it comes to a certain style of eating, they're going to be surrounded around the same thing. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. Is there anything else to touch on that?
Yeah, I really like the word you said, intention. What's your intention when doing anything, any kind of experiment on your health? Because I always think of my why. Why am I doing this? Because you might be listening to this and be like, well, why would I do carnivore? Like, I feel great. Cool. Feel great. Keep going. Right? This is for a reason. So I always think of my intention. I'm like, oh yeah, man, my kids' food does sound nice to eat, or the chocolate does sound nice. It's like, well, what's my intention here? And that gets me right back to like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing this for this reason. Good to go.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into what our intentions were when it comes to the carnivore diet. So, give us a breakdown, Emily. What was your intention of doing the carnivore diet? And then give us the pros and cons of your experience of going through it, because this was your second time going through it. Let us know. Give us a recap here.
Yeah, my intention with carnivore, one, we love to experiment. Joel and I both.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fun. We love digging into it, trying new things, see how we feel differently, if we notice any positive things or negative things. But this time, more specifically, I've been having some skin issues. And I've noticed my gut has been off a little bit by the way my bowel movements are and how I just feel with some bloating and certain things the past month or so, and skin issues for the past year that I haven't been able to pinpoint. And so I really wanted to try this again because the last time I did carnivore, I felt really great, and my digestion and stomach felt the best it's ever felt right after that. So it's like, hey, this is something I've done before, and it felt awesome. It felt like a great reset. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I wanted to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what the pros I felt with it both times are zero bloating, zero digestive issues when eating at all. Like, no stomach ache, no overly fullness, no feeling like you have air in your stomach, no like hard time sleeping because your body's still digesting. Nothing, like literally nothing. It felt great. Waking up, like, the feeling after you go to the bathroom, like, yeah, I feel light and good. That was it, like almost the whole time.
Mm.
If I could
Yeah.
compare it to something. So that was the pro, and it was actually very simple to plan your eating for the day. It's like, no, this is what I'm eating, right? There's no other options for me when we have all of our other work and momming and all the things in the day. That's just less decisions I had to make, and so that was helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the pros.
Yep.
On the con side, yeah, there were fleeting moments of like, oh, I gave my son, he gets these little bars. Those are like his treat in the car when we're like running errands kind of thing. And those are my treat too, or chocolate, right? Or I make paleo cookies once or twice a month, that kind of thing. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yet every time it was very fleeting. It would last for a minute, couple minutes, a moment, and then it would pass. Because I just reframed like, oh, it's my intention here. Cool, good to go. Or drank some water and element, or ate. Every time I ate, my craving, quote unquote craving, was satisfied through salty something. So for me,
Mm.
I'm realizing, and I know this through my genetic testing, that I tend to be very deficient in minerals. So I need a lot more than the average person. So having element or just eating a meal with some salt on it was really helpful.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I concur on a lot of the things you said in terms of the pros. Digesting was super easy. Energy levels were very stable. Um, I when it came to the bloating that I tended to have um, after eating like a lot of different vegetables and so on and so forth, it was just nothing. It was nothing. The simplicity of knowing like, oh, I'm going to eat meat. That's what I'm going to eat. I enjoyed. It wasn't like, what do I got to think about? Nope, it's just meat, meat, and more meat. So that was really simplistic for me. The biggest change that I saw was in my sleep. I saw some crazy numbers jump up, you guys. So I went from I averaged 7 hours and 40 minutes. Like that's in bed asleep. For the week I was doing carnivore, due to different things that were going on with business and personal life, that dropped down to 7 hours. That was the average for the week. Yet with the 7 hours, I actually got 23 more minutes a night in REM and an additional 19 more minutes in deep sleep. And that's with less time being in bed. And that was a huge change. I was waking up. I felt energetic. I felt good being able to get into the day. That part was awesome. Now, for me, some of the cons was, yes, the cravings late at night, sometimes just feeling like it would the repetitive of all the different meats were a struggle. It was like, oh, I'm going to have sausage with bacon, with eggs, with some more sausage. So not having that was a struggle for me at times. And then, of course, for me, my bowel movements, they were
Mm-hmm.
very loose.
Yeah,
Uh,
same.
and that after a while, that started running its toll on me. I'm like, man, 4 days of having really loose stool. What wasn't that like feeling when you have like a really strong stool and you're just like, oh man, that feels good. Like I that was a struggle.
Hmm.
Yet in the end, what I found is I started having less and less sugar cravings
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I was just like, yeah, actually, I can pass on it and not craving to have sugar. I would have an
Mm-hmm.
element, chocolate element at the end of the night with a little MCT oil and some collagen. And I'd be like, man, this is great. And it helped me sleep even more. So those were the wrap up of the carnivore. Anything else to place on that, to put a bow on that?
Yeah, I wanted to mention training or working out because I think people would have those questions like, did you modify your workouts? How'd you feel? I actually felt the same. There's one day I felt a little lethargic waking up going on a run in the morning, but I know it was because I went to bed like not eating enough. I was hungry. I remember thinking like, oh, I'm gonna put my son down and go and eat more because I'm still hungry, and then I just forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up and I was like, ooh, I feel that for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
But otherwise, every other day, every other moment, my workouts felt great. And actually, my runs, when I was more fueled, felt really good. I was like, I could just keep going and going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I agree on that. There were times that was also a con of like making sure I got enough
Mm-hmm.
calories in the day, just in general. And there
Mm-hmm.
was times where I'm just like, man, I'm hungry again. It's like I was using the same amount of meat as I would in a
Mm,
normal meal.
yeah.
In terms of normal, meaning like I had some fruits or vegetables or so on and so forth with it.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wait a second, I got to up that up.
Oh yeah.
I got to take that up. And so Emily helped me to recognize that throughout the week. And so that's something to be aware of too, guys. If you're going to do carnivore, is like you are going to eat more meat and you might eat more times than you
Mm-hmm.
usually do. And that's okay. Because again, what you'll find is that unlike if I'm eating, say, every 3 hours and I'm throwing in different fruits, vegetables, or even like some packaged snacks, and you kind of have that little bloating after, it didn't matter when I was throwing meat in there. It could be 2 hours later. I'd throw some meat down, no bloating, no
Mm-hmm.
bloating, which is really, really cool. If you're struggling with bloating right now, bingo.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, let's roll into the animal based diet. So, let's talk about why, Emily, we went from, and I did a fast before, and then I went to carnivore, and now we're going into the animal based diet. Why did we decide to shift over to animal based diet?
Well, it's a way to extend it a little bit more and experiment, continue to experiment to see what is working for you and what is not, right? Because a lot of people who do animal based, the pro there is it's very low inflammatory, but includes more than carnivore, just meat, right? Or just animal products. It includes fruit, dairy, if you tolerate dairy, and honey, right? So it gives you a lot more variety. It gives you something sweet to eat, some more fiber, some actual fiber. And so that's a way to test out like, hey, is this going to be more sustainable for me? And how does this feel?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't have veggies in there because those tend to be higher in chemicals that for a lot of people, if you have any kind of leaky gut or gut issues or autoimmune issues or any kind of serious health issue that you can't figure out, when you eat vegetables, those can be really hard on your system, like inflammatory, and that's what causes the bloating. It can cause a autoimmune response in your body when you have leaky gut. And so to eliminate those, just totally takes that factor out of it. And fruit is way lower on that scale than say vegetables and nuts and seeds.
Right.
So
Right.
that it's a way to transition and to say, hey, can I add a little bit more? Right. So if you add in fruit, for example, like how do I feel? And you see, it's a little experiment.
Right. Right. And why was it something that you wanted to do? Like, why did we shift from carnivore to that for you
Um,
specifically?
yeah, the two main reasons is it's more doable day to day than straight carnivore for me, and I wanted to continue the path of like, hey, how can I improve my gut and my skin?
Got you. Okay, cool. And I would say that was similar to me as well. Um, but actually, what I'm chasing even more is the sleep. Um,
Mm,
that has been, I mean, as I say quite often, guys, sleep is the elixir of life. Um, and if there's anything that I can do with my diet that is going to enhance my sleep, like I saw with those sleep numbers, I mean, I've done a lot of sleep stuff, guys. I mean, y'all, I go deep when it comes to sleep. And I have never, and I'm going to say never because I know it's a binary word, never seen numbers jump like that. And they're continuing. They're
hmm.
continuing. I got I just came home from a trip. I went to bed at 10:45, woke up at 6, and I usually am in bed at 9:45, 10, and I still got more REM and more deep sleep than I normally do. And I made sure last night, even when I was traveling, what I had for dinner at the Las Vegas airport was eggs and beef jerky. No carbohydrates. Came home, went to bed, felt amazing waking up. So that's why I continue to chase it. So you've alluded to this a little bit, but let's give a full definition. What is the animal-based diet for people that are listening?
Yeah, so it's carnivore at the base, so still all things animal, so meat, eggs, again, dairy if you tolerate it, and then you're adding in fruit and honey. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there are some people who do certain veggies that are lower in those phytochemicals I was talking about. So things like squashes, sweet potatoes, and some people include things like white rice,
Mm-hmm.
specifically because, again, they're low in those chemicals, but also easier for our body to digest, which is a huge pro of the whole reason why we're doing this.
Right.
And so it adds more variety, keeps out more of inflammation if your body is really sensitive or in a sensitive time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, is there still? I know that we talked about this in the carnivore, but still organs as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when I say animal, think of the entire animal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we need to touch on the organs because most people aren't going to be like, "Oh yeah, totally," on the side of liver or a side of
True.
heart or a side of
So I don't.
whole testicles.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And the reason for the whole animal is there's different nutrients in all parts of the animal. So you do want to get a variety of meats and variety of parts of animal for the nutrients. If not, I don't like eating organs, so I take a supplement. I take a desiccated organ supplement. And you can get specific ones if you have specific issues for your gut, for your gallbladder. If you're missing a gallbladder, take that. If you are a male, take the testicles one, right? There's all sorts of different kinds, and you could take a variety of them. But it's going to help you get more of an array of vitamins and minerals. And if you don't do that, then I would supplement with certain supplements because you will become a little bit deficient in things like vitamins, excuse me, vitamin C, for example, because that's one thing that's missing from an animal unless you eat the adrenals of an animal. Those are the only things that's going to have vitamin C in there.
Mm, mm. Okay, so one thing that I'm curious about in terms of the animal-based diet, and I know we're going to touch on this as well, is the honey. Why the honey? Why do they include that as something that they want? It's like a big thing, like, oh, and have some honey.
Hmm. Actually, don't know the answer to that. I assume it's an easy to digest sugar. It's made in
Mm,
nature,
yeah,
has some nutrients in it, and it's not doesn't have those phytochemicals or the anti nutrients as some people call them.
yeah, yeah. I would assume the same things as well. And y'all, listen, we're all figuring this out at the same time as you guys. We experiment, then we research, then we give you the results. And so, some of these questions that I talked to Emily about just come just straight to the top of my dome. And so, we'll I can almost guarantee you that Emily will research that and and be able to have a very detailed answer to it. That was just something I was curious about, Emily, because I
Mm.
just know that they've always been like, and honey, and honey, and honey. And I'm like, well, what's the deal with the honey? Is there something
Well,
specific to it?
a benefit a lot of people is they pair it with like the liver or any kind of organ meat. It can make it taste a lot better,
Yeah,
obviously.
that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, well, let me ask you this. What, and you've alluded to it as well. So that's what the animal-based diet is. It's surrounded around meats, fruits, some um, veggies. Think you named off sweet potatoes, yams. I saw carrots also can be one of the ones that are like lower or medium toxicity when it comes to those phytochemicals. And then you also named off, which I didn't know this, right? And maybe you guys did know, But that cucumber and zucchini are a fruit.
It's like avocado. I always forget
Yeah,
that avocado is a fruit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And they, what I've heard them say is that you just need it to be, it needs to be seedless and skinless. Which I'm like, how do I get the seeds out of a cucumber? Do I just cut it in half and then I do like the spoon, kind of scoop the seeds out? Is that, am I going down the right direction with that?
Yeah. Yeah. You'd cut it in half and then scrape it with a spoon if you really want to do it the right way. Because the seeds, it's like going back to seeds in general. Seeds aren't meant to be eat. Is the thought behind it because they're harder for our body to break down. So if you're serious about animal based in terms of doing this for healing, then that's what you'd want to do. But for you, I would say I wouldn't worry about it if you're having it like once a week kind of thing.
Got you, got you. Well, and they say it should be skinless too, and that's like the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's
Yeah.
harder for the body to digest, creates more inflammatory response.
Right.
Has some, there's some benefits to eating skin, right? Is there?
Yeah. So with any fiber, right? This is like the whole. There's a lot of camps in the nutrition space of like carnivore is very anti-fiber to help heal your body because it for some people if you have bad bacteria as an example the fiber feeds the bad bacteria. But then
Mm,
there's the other side of the camp that shows like all gut research shows that the more diverse gut microbiome is healthiest, quote unquote healthiest. In order to get that, you have to have a bunch of different fiber.
right,
But again, this is why I always say it depends on what your gut microbiome is and what the environment of your body in general, what's going on there and what's going to be helpful or not helpful. So this is why I always go back to when it depends to experiment, see what works for you.
right, right. Okay, okay. Well, what what are some of the benefits? Like, I know we've talked about this low inflammation, but is there like a list of benefits of doing the animal based? I feel like this is like a newer kind of diet that's come out. I don't know if there's a ton of research on it.
Yeah, the main benefits is very similar to carnivore. It's an easy way for people to lose weight because it's all whole foods. It's like a refined paleo diet. So it keeps you on whole foods. Again, big one, lower inflammation in general. And you're most likely getting enough protein if you're doing it the right way, right? Unless you're eating all fruit and then a little bit of meat, which would be tough. Like you'd have cravings all the time, your stomach
Right.
would hurt. But then you're getting the protein, the fat, because when you're eating quality animal proteins, you're getting both quality protein and fat. And then the fruit's going to help just with a little variety, a little bit of micronutrients, a little bit of fiber and variety.
Yeah.
So it's all really necessary stuff because our goal in nutrition is to get all of our micronutrients. So I call it our micronutrient cup full.
Hmm.
That's what's going to help lead to minimal illness, sickness, disease.
Got you. Got you. Okay. All right. So there's some benefits here, and again, like Emily says, it depends. It depends on what's going on. Um, is there, if people are like, well, how am I going to know if this is right? Is it just getting into it? Can they take like a gut test that's going to say like, oh, it would be better for you to be this way or that way, a genetic test, blood test? What's the route of being able to go, all right, well, if I'm doing this for healing, is there something I should test first before getting into it, or do I just go into it?
Yeah, that depends on what you are looking for, what your goals are, and what you're feeling now. So you could just go based on feeling. For some people, that's enough, right? Of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I don't feel good. I feel bloated. I get headaches. I get migraines, whatever it may be, stiff, achy joints. I don't sleep well. Cool. Then try this, see if that gets better. Journal about it. So
Mm-hmm.
you have some at least data on your own. Um, or you can go the super scientific way, get all the labs done, get a stool test, a 3-day stool test, a blood work, the hair tissue mineral analysis test, like all the things done. And then do this for 60 to 90 days and go do the same test again. You could totally do that as well. Obviously, it just costs a lot more. It's more intensive in terms of the efforts put in, but you could do that.
Sure, sure. And you said 3-day stool test.
Yeah.
How come?
So one is it's kind of the way I look at it is it's like taking your fasting blood glucose. It's just such a little snapshot in time. If you do one stool test, your microbiome changes hour to hour. And so not only will you catch different time, like different days of what your stomach is looking like or your gut microbiome, but also you'll if you do just one stool test, you're probably going to miss parasites because parasites transform. They have babies. You're not going to catch them if they're babies in the stool test. And so you want a 3-day test that's going to give them enough time span to catch all the things that you want to catch.
Oh, you just creep some people out by saying that. For
Mm,
sure.
yeah, probably. It's very
100%.
common. It's okay.
You have little parasites inside you that are creating little babies, and we don't know if they're
Mm.
inside you, but don't worry, they're
Hmm.
just eating away whatever's inside your body.
I mean, it's very similar to bacteria. We have so much bacteria in our body just crawling around.
Just, oh, even better. There you
Yep.
go. For all the germaphobes out there, they're just like, screw this, turning this
It's good.
off now. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty of it here. Let's give an example of the meats that you should eat, because it's not fully like, is it all red meat? Can there be some white meat? Um, what's based when it comes around the meat side?
Yeah, so technically it's all meat, right? Chicken, turkey, beef, pork. But the emphasis should be on red meat because it is the most nutrient dense. And again, think ruminant animals because they're eating what's natural and in nature. When you think of turkey and chicken, you really want to go pasture raised to do it correctly. Otherwise, you're eating those. We talked about this in the carnivore podcast. You're eating the animals that are eating grain that have the seed oils in it that are transferring into your body. And so
Right.
we want to, if you're eating non pasture raised white meat, for example, then you just want to have that very sparingly. I want to have that as a daily thing. Otherwise, you can order those things online. It's harder to find in the store. But I would stick to mostly red meat, grass fed, is the highest quality as you can would be ideal. So you're again, what you are, what you ate eats.
Mm-hmm.
It all transfers to us, and so you want
Right.
to think about that when choosing.
Well, and that could be the hard part. Is I was just talking to my brother the other day about it. It is pasture. Like, how often do you see pasture raised bacon? Like, I literally can't think of a time where I've been like, oh, pasture raised bacon in the store. I'm sure you can order it and so on and so forth. But even like, I'm thinking like, oh, pasture raised ground turkey or pasture
Yeah,
raised chicken. Is
yeah.
that a thing? Is that like,
It is a thing. It's just way harder to find because it's way more expensive for the farmers to do, and so
hmm,
it's a lot tougher cost wise. So and space wise, but it is better for the environment and it's better for us too. So hopefully more and more farmers will catch on
and
and
can
get the
you get that
resources
like
they need.
Whole Foods, Sprouts, or is this like something we would need to order?
As far as I know, I haven't seen it in stores, at least in Reno. I'm sure in other places, but usually you need to order it. When I do chicken, I get like the Mary's chicken from Sprouts. It's the best option I've seen in store. It's organic, and they try and do some of those practices. And as far as I know, I don't think they're pasture raised, but yeah, you'd order it online.
Got you. Okay.
I tend to stay away from those for the most part and treat myself with chicken thighs here and there.
Got you. So then we're looking at white meats are okay. I mean, all the meats are okay. We're really focusing on, are they out um, eating the things they're supposed to be eating, not pinned up. Here's your soy.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your um, grain or
Right.
corn. Eat this.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's shift from the meat side. Now we kind of understand the meat part of it. Let's talk about the carbs. So,
Mm-hmm.
what are the carbs that people are going to be getting mostly of?
So fruit and honey, if you want to include that. Again, like I mentioned, a lot of people use honey as like a marinade on their meat, or if they're eating organ meat, it can make it taste a lot better. There are some nutrients in honey, and if you have like a sore throat and a cough, it can be helpful. So that could be a helpful little remedy during those times. But otherwise, fruit. So I would think of like literally any fruit you want. But what I've been doing, testing it out, is one fruit at a time per day to see how I feel and react to it.
Hmm,
Berries I felt really good with. I had an apple and I didn't feel so great with, and so I'm giving that some space. I keep trying it every few days to see if there's any difference. Dried fruit I would stay away from in the beginning stages because one, it has a lot more fiber, it has a lot more uric acid, and can just be really hard on our body to break down. And so I would stay away from dried fruit until you feel like your gut is a lot better and healed and you're ready to try it.
got you. Gotcha. And just to cover in terms of some of the carbs that we talked about to pull back or to come back on, sweet potatoes, yams, carrots. These are on a list of um,
Like maybes or to try out.
yeah, try out
Yeah.
sparingly. What about
Mm-hmm.
fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, pickles, particularly if you're dairy intolerant?
Yeah, that's a good question. So anything fermented or yeah, anything with like vinegar, anyone who has these kinds of symptoms like chronic headaches, you get rashes easily or hives in the cold, or when you work out, you get flushed easily. Skin issues in general. I think anything histamine related, you're going to want to avoid those for a period of time, or do a histamine experiment of like eat all those foods, take a full week of eating low histamine foods, see if you notice difference, because there's a lot of people with what's called mast cell activation syndrome, which is like a high histamine response. And there's
Hmm.
foods like kombucha, for example, or just anything that's fermented that's going to make that worse. And you
Hmm.
need to take a break from that because it's a trigger. And so that's why I caution people with things like that at first. If you have gut issues, I'm like, or just any of those symptoms I listed, I'm like, just take notice when you have those. Even avocado is high in histamine.
Hmm.
And so you want to pay attention to how your body reacts. And again, you can always just do those little experiments, whether it be a day, a couple weeks, and see how it goes.
Interesting. Interesting. So, if you can't do dairy and you can't do fermented foods, where some good probiotics come from, is this where you're going to start supplementing?
No, I don't think everyone needs probiotics all the time,
Okay.
especially when your gut is in dysbiosis, that you want to take a break from them.
Got you. Got you. Okay. Um, all right. So those are the carbs. Any other carbs that we should be aware of? I know we talked a little bit about cucumbers, zucchini, squash, avocados. Anything else?
Yes, some people do white rice, again, organic
Mm,
white rice that is rinsed, soaked, properly prepared, meaning it's slow cooked is ideal.
gotcha.
Yeah, that could be added in. Again, it's just like dairy. Do you tolerate it well? How does your body react when you have those things?
Gotcha. Okay. And then let's cover the dairy part of it. Uh, what does the
Mhm.
dairy part look like in the animal based diet, and why are they including it?
They're including it because it's a natural food that's really nutrient dense. So, one of the only places you can get butyrate, which is what helps heal your colon, your large intestine, is butter, and grass fed butter specifically. And dairy has so many great proteins in there and just nutrients in general. And so, it is a really healthy food if you tolerate dairy well. And so the key thing being there, it's the quality. So making sure you're getting grass fed, organic would be the next level if you can't find grass fed, but pasture or non homogenized raw would be like top tier. You can get raw, awesome, because it has all the quality nutrients in it.
Mm,
When you get it pasteurized, it takes a lot of those out. It takes a lot of the digestive enzymes out, so it's harder to digest. But in general, think all dairy, so butter, whole milk, half and half, cheeses, but again, think raw and or grass fed.
beautiful. That can be a challenge, guys, depending on where you live in being able to get raw milk.
Mm-hmm.
And the little hack is what, Emily?
Little hack is what? I didn't hear you.
The hack when it comes to finding raw um, milk in the stores here in Reno or Nevada.
Well, the one raw item you can get at some stores is kefir, and it says it's for pets only. But obviously, so you can just buy it and take it. But I've not found like milk or any other products other than kefir.
Gotcha.
Or for us, we drive to Truckee and sometimes get milk or other products there.
There it is. Okay, so that we've covered the meat, the carbs, the dairy. Give us a recap of like what how often should you eat on an animal based diet? We kind of talked about the carnivores, like man,
Mm-hmm.
we need to eat more, but we are incorporating some of that. And what would a meal look like?
Yeah. So most of the time before doing this, I would eat twice a day, maybe have a protein rich snack, a third point in the day. Now I am intentionally eating 3 meals a day. because I find myself really, really hungry if I don't do that in between meals.
Sure.
Not really like ravenously hungry. It's just like harder to get enough calories in one sitting,
Mm-hmm.
fullness wise. So I would say 3 meals a day would be a great place to start. Again, think carnivore as your foundation and fruit being like a bonus add on. Like think a cup of fruit at each meal. That'd be a good starting point. For me, that's even a lot. So I do like 2 handfuls of blueberries, or I'll do half an apple, or half of a banana, like something that's like a smaller portion, especially if you're easing into it. That's where I would start and see how your energy levels are, your cravings are, your training goes, and your sleep goes. But for me, what did I? So for breakfast, I had 4 eggs, a chicken sausage, 2 pieces of bacon, and I think that was it. Yeah.
And no fruits, no yams, no anything else.
No, for me, I feel a lot more stable when I don't include those at breakfast, but I will at my next 2 meals. So I'll have like sweet potatoes at my lunch, like a third of a cup of sweet potatoes, maybe half cup. And then tonight I'll probably have some blueberries, maybe like a half a banana.
Awesome. Awesome. That's interesting because I'm going opposite way of I'm having more carbs earlier in the day, and
Mm-hmm.
then I get to my final meal and it's only meat.
Yeah. And some
And
people that goes to show the difference in people. I've heard both from different people. Like I feel so much better with my sleep if I don't have carbs, or other people saying I feel better with my sleep if I do have carbs.
sure, yeah, that's right. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, let's put a bow on this. We walked you guys through why we did the carnivore, what it was like for us. We walked you guys through what the animal based diet is, what are the benefits, and then we talked you through, hey, what are the meats that you're supposed to have, and even giving you some examples of how to plan out a meal. Um, let's give them the 3 steps of how to get started. If people are like, this is interesting, I want to do this. Currently, this is how my diet is, just normal fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, so on and so forth. What would be the 3 steps you'd give them?
Yeah. So first and foremost, this is what we did: is start to work through your perishable foods that you're not going to be eating. So maybe that is yogurt for you. Maybe it's mostly vegetables, is what I went through. Um, if you're doing carnivore, right, then everything. But if you're doing animal based, just make sure you're getting rid of the nuts, seeds, yogurt. Um, if you're not like, depending on what you're doing in terms of dairy and what kind of yogurt it is,
Right.
but running through the food that you currently have so you're set up for success in what's in your house, making it easy for you. So that's step number one. Number two would be to make a grocery list. What do you want to eat? And I found it very helpful. If anyone, if you guys want to see how we did our grocery shopping for carnivore, it's on our Instagram highlights. We bought a lot, and I actually am glad that we like kind of overbought, because it made me be like, oh, okay, I have options. I can make
Mm-hmm.
more if I need to, and
Sure.
it lasted a little longer than we thought, which was great. So I would even recommend buy more than you think, but really specifically the grocery list. Put on there lots of different options for your protein, right? Not only for variety in your palate, but variety in nutrients. So stock up on those and then pick out what fruits you want to try out first and start there. That'd be number two. And then the third tip be to watch your sugar intake, right? With the fruits. We've known some people who've tried this and they go ham on the fruits and they don't feel so great, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to eat too much fruit, especially if you feel like you're being restricted in some other foods, right? Going back to the beginning of the podcast, a lot of it has to do with mindset of like, again, why am I doing this? And, you know, checking in with your body. Because if we're still doing this, but also eating 200 grams of carbs a day and we have gut issues and energy issues, it's still not going to be helpful. And so moderation with the fruit still.
Love it. Love it. There it is, you guys. We're going to continue being curious. We're going to be our own test subjects so that we can give that information to you. And if you're curious, feel free to reach out to us on our Instagram page. You can email us, Joel or Emily at proclivity.co. If you guys are like, I want to know more, how's it going? We'll continue to post on our social media pages as well and keep you in the loop of what's going on with the animal based diet. And of course, if you guys want any additional information, we have tons of different PDFs and content that we can shoot right over to you to be able to dive in deeper. Emily, anything else?
Nope. That is great. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. Episode 136. What we're going to be rolling into now over the next month is we're going to be rolling into cold and hot therapy. So you're going to hear us be talking a lot about cold and hot therapy. So if you've been curious about cold and hot therapy, you're going to want to tune in for these next 3 to 4 episodes. And if you're listening to us now and you're like, man, I want to do cold therapy. Well, here in Reno, Nevada, we're going to be doing a cold therapy clinic March 9th. So if you're interested in that and you like, and yes, you're going to get into the cold water, just as a heads up. That's what a cold therapy clinic is going to be. It's going to be a cool social event. We're going to have a ton of different prizes to give away and things to be able to test into and venture into. So if you're interested, reach out. We'll talk to you more about that. Other than that, thank you for tuning in. Please, if you like this episode, leave us a review. Tell us that we're doing a fantastic job. If you don't think we're doing a fantastic job, you don't have to give us a review. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. That's it. Episode 136. We look forward to diving into episode 137 with cold and hot therapy next week. And until then,
Best day ever.
Best day ever. Emily, I got a question for you.
Yes.
If you could eliminate something in your life with no drawbacks, like there is no like, it's going to cost me money or time, or I'd have to get rid of that relationship or whatever else. If you can eliminate one thing, what would it be?
There's so many options. I think of like cleaning my house. Is that an option?
It's your option. You get to have whatever option you want.
Like if my house could just be clean all the time, that'd be great. That'd be really good.
Never have to clean again. Ever again. Yeah. No drawbacks. You didn't have to pay anybody. There was no frustration to it. It was just always clean. Everything was always right where it was supposed to be.
That'd be very nice.
That would be very nice. That would be very nice.
What about you?
Eating. If I never had to eat again.
Like, what? I love eating.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. I enjoy it. But if I could eliminate eating, where it's just like, I never had to worry about it ever again. There was no drawbacks. There was no like, oh, I'm going to miss the food. That would be a drawback, right? There would be no drawback in like, oh, my body composition. Like it was just purely, I don't eat food anymore. And I still get all the beautiful benefits of imagine being on like the most dialed in diet specifically for me.
I just love food. Like truly. I love food. Not just to eat it, like, or not just for energy, but
what if you didn't love food? You know what I mean? Like if there was no drawback, there you wouldn't miss food.
I feel like it'd be less fun.
But I get what you're saying.
I see what you're saying too, but it's still hard for me to conceptualize.
I just think it would be incredible. I'll just like go through and it was like there's no it is hard to conceptualize.
You'd save a lot of time, but I just feel like it would take some of the joy of life out.
And if I had all that time, where else could I put that joy?
Lots of options.
Lots of options. Anywho. All right. That's it. See you later.